This is the Certifiable Environmental Professional Podcast, and I'm your host, Sam Hopstone. This is my journey to uncover the untold tales from the resumes of fascinating professionals shaping our planet's future.
Certifiable environmental professional.
And you're listening to Certifiable Environmental Professional Podcast.
So this is episode 7 of the Certifiable Environmental Professional Podcast. We've got Cecile Shohet here. Can you tell us, I've broken down the question list different. Well, let's start off with what you're drinking.
I'm drinking sparkling water. Black raspberry with a Z.
Black raspberry, naturally essenced. Excellent.
Yes.
Happy summer.
Sound check.
And what's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, now that's tough.
Take as much time as you need.
There's so many. I don't know if I can have one. But I love like a coffee fudgy. I love cherry Garcia if it's homemade. I love pistachio at times. I had a great lemon flavor, like a lemon curd with chocolate. I had a double cone when I was in Denver at a creamery place. The lemon curd was incredible.
Okay, so that's all over the place. Tangy, sweet, some sour stuff, some coffee stuff, some chocolatey, gooey stuff. Excellent. A well-rounded ice
Definitely
cream.
not vanilla.
You ever make your own? Like,
Yes,
home
I have,
brew?
yes.
You get some lavender from the backyard and... Cool.
Yes. I made adzuki bean ice cream once. It didn't come out good,
What?
but I tried.
Is that like red beans or...
Yeah, it's a red bean.
Okay.
I've made cherry Garcia ice cream, and that was super fun and delicious.
Cool. Cherries and what else?
Cherries picked, chocolate.
Cool.
Chocolate chunks.
Excellent.
Yes, and like a cream, like a vanilla, but more like, a cream flavor based. It was great. It's great. It's
Milk?
a good flavor.
Milk cream, or you ever get any weird like nut, like cashew cream?
I haven't done that yet, but I like coconut ice cream.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a win-win. It's like fruity, but it's also got the... Okay.
Yeah, and if you're in an Italian neighborhood in Brooklyn, those shaved ices are pretty darn good. There's lots of flavors.
Yes. Seasonals.
Yep.
Um,
Yes.
All right. What's your current job title, your employer, and current projects of interest, if you can share any? No pressure, right? If not, or something
Sure,
you
I
had
can-
fun
yeah,
that was the
sure,
past 5
sure.
years.
I am, I'm mostly a botanist. Mostly I do taxonomy. So mostly I go to project areas where there's going to be a ground disturbing event happening. It could be so many different things. And I survey the area for rare plants and I document rare plants. And so in order to do that job well, you have to identify everything. Because you don't necessarily know what rare plants you're going to find. I mean, you kind of do have an idea because there's so many databases with sightings, and you can look at databases and say, okay, this is known from here, this is known from here. We have that kind of habitat in the project area. There's a good possibility this rare plant will be there. And I absolutely have loved the floristics of my job. And I have absolutely loved, so I graduated, I got my master's from Arizona State University
Is that Tucson?
That's Tempe.
Tempe.
So
I
I
flip-flop those.
in 1999, so I've been doing this for 26 years.
That's a good run.
It's been a great run. And I work all over the West. I've worked all over the West. I've worked in Utah, Idaho, Washington State, Oregon, California, Nevada, Arizona. Mostly I'd say Oregon and California. And I have adored having a project in the Sonoran Desert, then having a project along the California coast, then having a project later in the year in the mountains, in the Sierras, or elsewhere, the Botany Siskiyous in Southern Oregon. And I have totally enjoyed the different kinds of plants you see in all those places. And I really, honestly, they just take my breath away. And they always have since I first noticed. Really, my heart was touched by plants. I don't know what to say. It's kind of strange. They found me. I was a New Yorker. This is kind of a segue, but I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Queens. I didn't even have a Central Park, which is actually a great nature spot. But nature really wasn't in my view there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of parks. I know Prospect Park. I don't
But
really know
that
the
was
Queens
Brooklyn.
area,
I
right?
wasn't in Brooklyn. I was in Queens.
It's
We
over
didn't
the
have great big parks. You know, we had these,
beach.
okay, so we have concrete, and then they would leave a square out in the concrete sidewalk, you know, one of those squares. They'd leave
Tree well.
out, and they'd put in this tree that never grew big, that never acquired its mature bark, that never really formed a canopy, so you'd say, oh, this elm has this kind of a canopy, and this maple has this kind of a canopy, because they're so distinct. And their barks are so distinct, but those little, you know, one square gone out of a concrete street, it didn't give the plant the opportunity to be what it could be and express what it could express.
Yeah, street trees.
Street
They're
trees.
tame.
Yeah, so it took me till I was 22 to really discover botany.
You found the golden ticket, you know, following the seasonal work. How do you say that? You followed, you know, you found a way to follow the nice weather, right? Going from the desert and up into the north.
Well, not necessarily. So that brings up a very good point. So basically, when I do a project, there needs to be a lot of pre-work that you do before you even go anywhere on the ground. You're not looking at anything. You do a lot of work in the computer, you look through a lot of books, and you determine what rare plants have a likelihood of being in that project.
What do you anticipate?
Yeah, what we anticipate seeing because of habitat, because of range. So plants have a habitat, and if the habitat isn't there for some of them, you're not going to find them. Some plants have several different habitats they can be in. Some are very restricted. So there's a soil type called serpentine, for example.
Yep.
And so when I graduated and got my master's, I got a job on the Siskiyou National Forest at that time. Now it's called the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest, and it's in Southern Oregon. And we had lots. We were the center for serpentine soil. And there are some plants that you are obligate. They're obligate. They only grow on serpentine. And some plants, they can grow in several different kinds of soils. But so it's really interesting. So when I go to a project area, I determine what rare plants could be here and when do they flower or when do they fruit. So some plants, like on this project, we have a lot of rare annual Atriplex species. And Atriplex have a very ornate fruit. So the fruit is the structure that encloses the seeds. And so Atriplex, I cannot tell one Atriplex from the other. I can tell, okay, so there are many different Atriplex species. And some of the species, the vegetation, the leaves and the stems look very similar. So similar, you would not try to identify them from the vegetative parts, which are stems and leaves. And Atriplex flowers are very inconspicuous. So you would not think you could identify an Atriplex from the flower. What you need are these fruits. And the fruits are really sculpted. They have a pattern to them. They're quite ornate. And you can tell these different Atriplex species apart by their fruits. So you survey a project area based on when the rare plants that are likely to be on that project site can be identified. And so let's say I'm surveying in the Mojave Desert. I'll tell you what, in March, it is so wonderful to be in the Mojave Desert. And there are a bunch of plants in the legume family that you identify in March. But then,
The August flowering.
oh, the September flowers. Oh my
Ouch.
God, 110 degrees by 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the morning. It's a nightmare.
You have a
So,
big umbrella, hat, shield thing.
so yes, I do. I should have brought my umbrella. It's in my car. We
Show and
we
tell.
might pause and do a show and tell.
Ah.
But there's all these things that botanists can do to keep cool, because sometimes you're walking 10
I
miles,
was going to say, if you're doing a 12-hour,
12-hour day in the field, and by 11 o'clock it's 110. You try to start as soon as you can see the ground. So that could be 5:30 in the morning, but you're still out there in the 110 heat where there's no shade.
bring your own shade.
Yep, carry an umbrella. I do, and I'll tell you, those umbrellas, I have an ultralight umbrella that was designed by the company Go Light, which no longer exists, and they sold it to another company that still sells ultralight gear. And that umbrella, I checked it. It drops the temperature from anywhere from 8 to like 12 degrees when I have that umbrella over my head, and that is huge. That is huge.
You can feel it too.
You can
Even
feel
in
it.
Fresno, like shade to sun.
Yes.
I can hang out in the shade outside all day, but in the sun,
Oh,
it hurts.
it hurts.
It's punishing.
Punishing.
So, are you literally holding a parasol out there, or do you have like a hat? Like, I've got a brim for my hard hat, but when you're doing a specifically floristic survey, right? Just walking.
So it just depends on the temperature and how hot I feel and how long I've been out there. Sometimes I'm okay at 100 degrees not putting on my umbrella. I can attach it to a bungee to my backpack.
Oh, cool. Yeah, clip it in and then
clip
keep
it
rolling.
in. Sometimes I don't mind holding it. You can change the angle.
I guess if the wind's blowing 40 degrees or 40 miles an hour too, you don't clip a sail onto your backpack.
Yes. So there's all these variables. You're outside.
Copy
There's
that.
a variety. Yes. But the umbrella's fabulous. It's light. Yeah, we should do a show and tell.
Totally. You're on.
Okay.
You've experienced, the hottest of the summers. What about like coldest of the winters? Have you ever done?
Oh, yeah.
Does it quiet down like winter season, or do you just head down to sea level?
So, as I mentioned, my first full-time job after graduate school was with the Forest Service. And I have to say, my heart, I really love the Forest Service. I really love Forest Service land. I really love all that habitat that's protected, just these big, big acreages of protected land. So I was the district botanist for the Forest Service in a town called Cave Junction in southwestern Oregon. We had a lot of serpentine, as I mentioned. And
Is that Klamath? I'm trying to think what's west of Klamath. Not Six Rivers.
it's north.
Johnson. Okay.
It's not California, it's Oregon.
Southwest corner.
Southwest corner of Oregon.
Got it.
So the Siskiyou Mountains.
Siskiyou. Okay.
Siskiyou Mountains. I'm not going to diverge, but okay,
Fair
we can
enough.
say a lot of things about the Siskiyou Mountains. I can almost hardly not. Okay, we have to go there.
We can just cut it. It's cool.
The Siskiyou Mountains is a really special place for plants. There is huge diversity there, and it's considered one of the most diverse places in the United States in terms of plants. And the only other place that rivals the Siskiyous in terms of plant diversity is the Smokies.
Interesting. I thought you were going to say Channel Islands.
No, and it's because of serpentine. That's one thing. Because serpentine soils they're so hard for plants to survive on that plants had to adapt to make it on serpentine soil. So quickly, I will say, very, very quickly, serpentine comes from oceanic crust. And most of the soils are from the continental crust. So the mineral makeup of oceanic crust material, the oceanic plate material, is really different than the mineral makeup of continental plate material. So in a nutshell, Serpentine is full of minerals and elements that are toxic to cells. So they're heavy, they're high in heavy metals, they're low in nitrogen, they're low in calcium, they're low in everything you'd find in a fertilizer, nitrogen, potassium. So it's problematic for plants. And so plants had to evolve to survive on serpentine. So right there, there's a whole bunch of plants in serpentine that just makes the diversity of the place super high. Something else about serpentine is it's not contiguous. So
It's a transition zone, right, too? So there's varying level. Is there any, how do you say that?
So
There's diversity in the geologic makeup as far as
yeah.
like serpentinite content.
Right, but also that, so the serpentine, so basically the oceanic crust material accreted onto the coast. So initially it was next door, adjacent to the coast. But then over geologic time, there was uplift and movement. And in the Siskiyous, the layers aren't orderly in terms of time. There's been uplift and juggling and mixing and mashing, and there's some serpentine over here and then there isn't, and there's some serpentine over here and then there isn't. So the serpentine in the Siskiyous is this island effect. So then you have these islands of serpentine that are separate, and you could have, let's say, a fawn lily over here, and 20 miles away you could have another piece of serpentine, and the fawn lily has evolved to be kind of different because there hasn't been gene movement. You know, seeds haven't been able to disperse to this other island of serpentine. And so there's even more diversity. So the Siskiyous have like this huge amount of diversity because of the serpentine. But another aspect of it that's super interesting to me is that the Siskiyous never fully glaciated.
What do you mean?
So, you know, in many places, the glaciers were just, the land was covered by ice. But the Siskiyous had this mild-ish climate during the last glaciation period.
You just mean they weren't fully buried? They didn't have like 5,000 feet?
Right, they weren't fully buried. So there were places that had glaciers.
But they still had seasons and sun exposure.
And so a lot of plants migrated there. You know, the way that plants migrate, which is their seed gets dispersed, they move whatever, 20 miles or whatever. Their seed dispersal happens, they find a place where they can survive, and they start colonizing a new place. So many of these old plants had the chance to get into the Siskiyous and persist there.
Right, it's been vegetated for a lot longer than South Cascade, Lassen Range.
Exactly. So we have all of these, I would just say, old species that have been there a long time. And you can see them in the geologic record.
Wow.
That they were in other places. What the heck? They're here now, but however many thousands of years ago they were in eastern Oregon or in Nevada or somewhere else. So it's really cool. So we have all these like relic species of times way back. And then we have new species that are pretty limited to the Klamath Siskiyous, but are newer in age. They're not as old. So there's all these reasons.
New arrivals.
Interesting. Yeah, so it's super interesting. So there's all these reasons why the diversity in the Klamath Siskiyous is so high. Anyway, it's a botanist's dream. That's all I have to say. A total botanist's dream. And then you have these rare serpentine plants or these they're limited in range. They're in this area only. So there's so many rare plants also in Serpentine. But then if you think about it, there's riparian areas in Serpentine. So there's all these riparian plants that are only in wet areas. Their roots have to be wet, and it has to be serpentine soil. So and then there's dry, and then there's different kinds. There's peridotite plants, which is a kind of serpentine, and serpentinite plants. It's just really dry. There's rock lovers, there's wet lovers, there's the thin soil clayey lovers. Anyway, it's just fascinating. It's just fascinating. I don't know what to say. It's just amazing to me.
It's diverse. It's unique. You can, jump to the next mountain and see something totally different species.
Yeah, you can drive south and it's a whole different complement of species. It is true. And what is best known about wetlands serpentine is the cobra lily, Darlingtonia californica, which is a phenomenal plant that is insectivorous.
Cool.
And it is
cobra lily.
It's darling. It is something to behold. I would love to take you there. I would love to do this. This should actually
field trip.
This should be a field study. This should not be sitting in someone's backyard because you can't see it. I want you to see it. You would just drool.
We could do a field. We'll do a field episode.
We'll have to do a field
Kern
episode.
mellow, something.
Yeah. Serpentine. May. That would be fun. Darlingtonia wetland.
What about like Central Valley? What's your, what's the gem of the summer?
Oh yeah,
South
the Carrizo
Valley,
Plains.
Tulare Basin.
Yeah, there's so much to see.
Glorious.
Glorious.
Hey, back to it.
Okay, next question.
Where do you currently live, and what gets you excited about it? Are you are you in Central Oregon or seasonal?
So I live in southwestern Oregon. I never could quite leave the Siskiyous, even though most of my work is in California, but I could never leave it. I don't know.
Nice spot to head home to.
Great spot to head home to. So I live in a town called Ashland, which is right over the California border.
Excellent.
In a valley. So I live in a valley surrounded by, on one side it's the foothills to the Cascades, on the other side it's the Siskiyous. So there's a lot going on there. It's a wonderful little town, pretty ecologically literate. A lot of people that love nature.
What gets you stoked about it? People.
The town.
I'm trying to think of the river that's running through.
The Rogue River, Bear Creek runs through.
Okay, I've jumped in the
that
Rogue
area.
in the National Forest, but I don't remember.
Bear Creek.
Cool.
Yeah. So the town is, what I love about it is it's really liberal. It's really a progressive town. There's a lot of community. People really care for each other. It's sort of mellow, so people don't always lock their doors at night, that kind of a place.
Interesting.
People are really friendly and caring, and I have a number of friends where I could, I have the keys to their house, or I know where their key is stashed, and I could go to their house if I wanted to, if they weren't there, that kind of a
Sweeties.
place. Yes, it's wonderful.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'd like to chart through your career. Some people all start in like elementary school, right? One of my questions is like, did you collect bugs or I collected flowers when I was a little kid. When I was, I remember t-ball practice, I was out in the field, picking all the buds instead of watching for the ball.
Right, there you go.
So yeah, let's just start at like elementary school. Do you remember anything that pointed towards your career?
It's kind of interesting. I think about that sometimes. So, like I said, I grew up in New York City. So I grew up in Queens, not Manhattan. And there wasn't a lot of nature to see, but we had fireflies. And we had cicadas that sang in the summer all the time. And we would see dead cicadas sometimes on the sidewalk with cicada killers. Anyway, there always is nature to see and be excited by. And I know my family didn't garden, but some of my neighbors did, and I know that I was just sort of mesmerized by their gardens. But I think the first experience I had that, looking back, that was like, wow, nature. I was in the 5th grade, and we did a trip to like a kind of a marsh, and I say like that kind of a marsh because
It was wet.
Because it was wet, and it was in Queens, so you know it wasn't big, and it wasn't like well cared for. It wasn't taken care of necessarily. It was, houses were next to it and streets and roads, right? But there was this little remnant marsh, and I can't even remember what it looks like. But I remember being on this class trip in the 5th grade and being in this marsh. I'm calling it a marsh, but it wasn't really a marsh. It was just an area where water flowed, and there was some trees and shrubs and viney things and stuff like that. And the sun was coming through the leaves of all the various layers of the canopy, then the shrub layer and the vines and all of that. And it sort of created that dazzling light that you sometimes see. And then there was the water, and the water was also illuminated. And I kind of remember sort of for a second or two just being transported into this realm of light and a glow and red and out of my sort of body, in a sense, like just
magical,
like, ooh,
green
magical
forest land.
Yeah, with this light
We call that
shimmering
when you have full
through
canopy,
the different
you're
green.
in the bubble, you know?
Yeah.
It's just green in all directions.
Right, and then you kind of come to very quickly after, probably lasted a second, and that was it. And I didn't really remember it. This is kind of funny. So later, as I was in my 30s, as I was already a botanist, as I had already discovered nature, I was thinking back to my life and thinking, was there any clue? Where was there a clue? And I somehow, that memory just kind of reconnected with me.
Nice, resurfaced.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
I remember that day, wetland day.
But my career started, basically, I needed one more biology class, and I was going to graduate from college. And I saw, there's a field botany class being offered. And I thought, okay, I'll sign up for field botany. Okay. So really, literally, I think the first day, somehow the plants just touched me. I mean, they really touched my heart. And I was absolutely receptive. And it was just like this, again, magic of excitement. I just loved it. I loved naming these things. I loved looking at them. I loved knowing how to organize them in families, then in genera and species. I loved the organization. I loved how flowers, you could look at a flower and say, oh, this is in the mustard family. Oh, this is in the rose family. Oh, this is in the pea family. It just was, to me, like really magical. And I had a professor who, even though he had been a professor probably for 30 years, he loved it. He was excited with the class. And we ended up doing field trips all over Queens and Nassau County. And we went to a field station that Queens College, that was my school, Queens College had in Long Island, called Comset State Park. I guess it was a state park, but it was a Nassau County park. Anyway, it just lit me up. I was just lit up, totally lit up.
This was all that one semester botany course?
One
or are you talking about
summer session.
Summer course.
One, like 3 weeks.
That's all it takes.
I think it was 3 weeks. It didn't even take 3 weeks. It took 2 days, basically. And it's so interesting. Like, people say, how do you ever remember these Latin names? Because these Latin names are complicated, and they're not our language, right? But for some reason...
Well, you learn the code.
Yeah, it was so easy. But if you ask me to remember the Latin names of insects or birds, or
They're not burned in.
they don't attach. It's interesting. It's so interesting. Anyway,
Even if, not just in the field, but even back in the office, it's satisfying being able to just have a mental filing system. And it's all nicely lined up by somebody.
and it's magical. You walk an extra step and you see this thing that is absolutely stunningly beautiful. I think that for me, I discovered beauty. When I discovered plants, I discovered the highest art, the highest beauty. I felt the energy of plants. I felt something from them. I couldn't have said it back then. Now I would say I really felt them energetically. I felt their gentleness, their, in a sense, love, in a sense, connection to the universal.
Each species, too, you're experiencing the seasons with a new dimension. It's like all these little dimensions that change by the week throughout the year.
I mean, if you go to a meadow, a real functioning meadow,
it's magnificent.
It's magnificent. And that's why I love the Forest Service. And I loved working for the Forest Service. Meadows, forest. We had riparian, creeks, rivers, and most of it was still native. So you saw functioning ecosystems on a large scale. So the Siskiyou National Forest, I think, was over 1 million acres. And contiguous, like, big chunk. 5,000 here, 250,000 acres there. It's incredible.
Is there any checkerboard?
That's
like
BLM.
Okay, got it.
BLM has a lot of checkerboard. So that was the beginning of my career. I was going to medical school. I actually did go to medical school, and I left because I discovered I just loved the plants. Anyway, so
did biology and then
poof,
turned on a different bio.
Right. So that was my beginning, and then I ended up getting a master's, and after my master's I started working for the Forest Service, first for the Lassen National Forest, which is in northern California, northeastern California, kind of close to Reno. And
that's where I see the checkerboard, looking on Google Earth and Google Maps.
Well, BLM is checkerboard.
Yeah.
Forest Service doesn't really have checkerboard land.
Got it. How did you end up out west?
I just knew I wanted to go out west to do botany. I knew something in me knew that I needed to go west to be with the plants. And I
called
can
to the
see
Cascades.
That. Yeah, I was just called to come west. So interesting. Anyway, sometimes we have so much intuition, especially when we're younger. It's clearer in us. We don't even think about it. But it was like something in me was like, go do botany in the west. And I listened to it then.
You just did.
I just did
it. And it worked.
I did it, and it was so right. It was right. So then I worked for the Forest Service for about 5 years, and then I continued as a part-time doing special projects as well. But then a friend of mine said, come and consult with me. There's all these fabulous projects that we can bid on and just be outside working all over the place. And we ended up getting several contracts on the Plumas National Forest. At that time, there was a lot of work on the Plumas.
So is this like your first transition from agency employee to private consulting?
Right, yeah. Right. So I had a 4-year term with the Forest Service, and when my 4 years was over, my friend said, come on, let's do this together. And I just was like, okay.
You got the call.
Yep. So we camped out. We had a 10,000 acre survey the first year on the Plumas. We camped.
That's a start.
Yeah, we just camped out, and we covered all the ground, and it was phenomenal. Phenomenal. Yeah. And then...
What kind of survey was it? Like
rare plant survey.
Okay, got it.
So there is a National Environmental Policy Act, a law. And on federal lands, there is a law requiring surveys to be done if there's habitat for something that is federally threatened or endangered. And over time, they expanded that legally to include plants that had potential to get on that list in the future because they were sort of rare. So they expanded the list to be rare things, to be federally threatened and endangered, which is a really hard status to get. You don't often find a plant that's federally listed. So Forest Services came up with lists of plants that they wanted to watch that were, varying degrees of rarity, and they gave them, they assigned the different levels of rarity to them with numbers or however they do it. It's state by state, really. And
when was this? Like early 2000s? When they started, when they built that framework?
It must have been before that. So I started working for the Forest Service in 2000. And I would say it had already been in place for at least a decade.
Okay.
So a long
90s.
time. Yeah, maybe 80s.
Got it.
So, yeah. So anyway, so there's lots of rare plants to know and look for, and some of them are less rare, some of them are more rare, and there was plenty of work on the West Coast.
Is it like recurring assessments, or was that like a first, are they just doing blanket, like first survey, rare plant survey, in chunks? Like what's the...
Why, what?
I guess what was the bigger program that it was part of? Like how did 10,000 acres come about? Was that like prior to, hazard mitigation?
Right.
What do you call that? Fuels reduction?
Fuels reduction.
Or was it just survey? Just for...
Right, projects.
Got it.
So basically the 10,000 acres, it wasn't all contiguous. There were several different parcels, but generally it was like several thousand acres that we had to survey.
Yeah, huge
that were
chunks.
Huge chunks. And it was at that time, they got a big, there was money that was allocated from Congress, and their job was to do fuels reductions.
Got it.
But they sort of combined that with the forest's plan for the future. So timber sales, any other potential project, any other ground disturbing project, because the law is if you're going to disturb the ground and there is habitat for something that's rare, threatened or endangered, federally listed, you need to do a survey. And so they kind of folded in what their vision for the forest was in terms of the future, and could you survey this? We haven't gotten around to figuring it out yet, so just go do this giant survey.
It's not like immediately prior to some land use or land development. It was more of an assessment to help support planning, future planning. Interesting.
And they did some
never
thinning.
Knew or never knew about that stuff.
They did thinning. They did a lot of thinning.
Okay.
They wanted fuels reductions. They did some timber sales. Timber sales are big. Especially in 2000, the 90s, the 80s, yes. So all of that. And it was a real joy. I mean, it's also really hard work. And it's also very studious. Botany is really studious. So although we camped out, I mean, really think about it. You're on the ground.
Every square inch.
You're identifying every single plant you come across.
Yeah.
Now,
a piece of paper like 25 inches long.
I mean, our plant list easily was 300 plants.
That's wild.
Imagine remembering, so let's say we had 10 species of aster. I'm just using that because maybe people know asters. Well, think about remembering every time you're walking, this aster, it has its seed, which is called an achene, has plumose, which is like a feathery hair-like things coming off the seed. Because if you think about it, if you have a plumose, a feathery hair-like thing coming off the seed, the wind can pick it up and it can travel. And plants want to disperse. They want to get somewhere where they can grow into another plant. So anyway, I'm like segueing, but so you have to, as a botanist, you have to remember all this morphology, all these characters of a plant. Why is this aster different from this aster? Why does it get this name and not that name, or not that name? And then if you think about it, you're walking by in a day probably 200 plants. And they're plants that are in the Sierra. But then a botanist also works maybe in the desert, and there's different plants there. And then a botanist comes and works in the Central Valley of California, and there's different plants there. So we're sort of studious because we need to have information at our fingertips, whether it's a book. In the old days it was a book. Now everything is electronic. You can see so much stuff on your phone. And now there's even apps that you take a picture of a plant and the app tells you what it is. I mean, that was not the old days.
It's up here.
So it's an evolving thing, but it was wonderful. I mean, it was wonderful to keep learning, and, you know, your memory and all these plants and lists and looking closely at the tiny details of a plant so you could figure out, is it this one or that one or that one or that one? So anyway, I don't know. How is that for an answer to the question?
I'll take it.
Okay, good.